Now this is most likely going to be the last video that comes out for the year, and I wish you all the very best during the holiday season. Please stay safe and enjoy your time with your loved ones. G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy and today I'm going to share with you what I'm intending to read in the next year, the next 12 months or so. I know that a lot of book YouTubers do monthly TBRs, but I'm not one of these people that has to read something as soon as it comes out or has to watch a film as soon as it comes out. I'm more interested in being in the right mood for whatever it is. So monthly TBRs could never work for me because I know I will never follow it. But I have a rough idea, a general idea as to what I want to read. Now, I'm not sure if any of you will even be interested in this, but I know that TBRs are popular. And whilst this isn't really a monthly TBR, I guess you could call it a annual TBR. Anyway, now, as to the kind of books I do read, my favourite genre is fantasy. I'm a huge fan of it, have been for a very long time now. However, about 10 years ago, I got so sick of fantasy because I had read far too much really, that I haven't touched any for I'd say 10 years. It's only this year that I started reading fantasy again and I'm loving it, so I definitely want to read a lot more fantasy in the next year. And that includes old favourites, fantasy that I have read many times before, but it has been so many years that I'd like to reread them. That's what happened to me when I started talking about fantasy authors on my channel. I found I wanted to reread everything. And that's what I'm intending to do. I'm intending to read, say, an old favourite fantasy series and then a new series by an author I have not read before. Other genres that I read is legal thrillers. I love them. Not John Grisham. I cannot stand John Grisham's books at all. But I love Scott Turow, Richard North Patterson, Steve Martini. They're the ones that spring to mind at the moment. And I haven't read any of theirs for several years. And I know that they have brought out a few since I last read any. So I'm hoping to read some of those, but I have to be in the right mood for them. Something else that I'm really enjoying is Agatha Christie. I haven't read Agatha Christie since I was a teenager, which is 40 years ago. I read them all in high school. We had 2 shelves of them and I read every single one. But I haven't read any since. The thing with murder mysteries for me is that once I know what happens, I'm not interested in rereading it. But it has been so long since I've read Agatha Christie that I am just loving it. So I will definitely be continuing to read Agatha Christie throughout the year. Who knows, I may decide I just want to read the whole series. The other thing I've decided is that it is time to cross off some of these classics from my bucket list. Books I've always intended to read and haven't. And I'm intending to read at least one classic, hopefully every month. That way at least I can start getting through some of them. And of course, something else I will intersperse throughout the year is any Stephen King books. I always read Stephen King. I generally wait till I have several and then I'll read all of them in one go. I currently have 3 that I haven't read. One is If It Bleeds, which I know is short stories. The other is Later and Sleeping Beauties. Sleeping Beauties is the only really thick one. Later is very small, and the other one being short stories, I decided no, I'm going to wait till I have a few more and then I'll just read them all together. Sometimes I also reread an old Stephen King book. I've been thinking I might reread it. I don't know. It all depends what I get in the mood for. Okay, Now I wanted to talk about who specifically I'm intending to read in the next year. I am not, however, committing to reading all these authors and all these series. It really depends what I get in the mood for. I've mentioned that I might read some legal thrillers by Scott Turow and Richard North Patterson. I will most likely read at least several Stephen King books throughout the year. As for classics, I'd like to read some H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, The Divine Comedy, perhaps Don Quixote as well, more Russian authors like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, Chekhov maybe, even though I have read the Chekhov plays. And I've never read Frankenstein, so I'd like to try that and see if I like it or not. The problem with that one is I have seen so many films of it that I feel I know the story, and I might not enjoy the book as much. I don't know. I guess the only way to know is to try it and see. And that is just to name a few that are on my radar. I might also reread 1984 and Brave New World, both of which I have read before. And something else that I'm hoping to read a little bit of, not too much because it is not a favourite genre of mine, is science fiction. I know that Timothy Zahn, who I love, has brought out a new THRAWN series. But, and this is what I always do when sequels come out, is I reread the entire series. So I definitely would like to read those next year. I also would like to read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. My brother recommended him to me years and years ago. I also might read Arthur C. Clarke's Rama series. I own them, but I've never read them. And perhaps Dune also, though I can't remember if I have read it or whether my recollection is from the film, which I saw years ago. But that is something I would like to read. And all these books that I'm talking about will be interspersed throughout any fantasy series that I read, because that is the predominant genre that I read. Currently, I am reading the Deathgate Cycle by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. It is a big favourite of mine, and it's been years since I've read it. I'm currently on book 3. I actually thought I would have finished it by now, but I got distracted by Agatha Christie. I thought I'd only read a couple of Christie's books. 15 books later, I'm still in the mood for her books. But when I need a break from that, I will finish off the Deathgate Cycle. Other old fantasy series I'd like to read include the Deveri Cycle by Catherine Kerr. I know that there are 16 or 17 books. I've only ever read 8, but it's been so long I'm going to reread it from the beginning. Other series include The Rift War Saga by Raymond E. Feist, though I have read that several times. The Elenium by David Eddings, because I love Sparhawk. Again, I've read that several times. I also want to reread things like L.E. Modesett Jr.'s Magic of Recluse series, because that I cannot even remember, but I know I did enjoy it. Books by Julian May, I think it's The Many-Coloured Earth. I think that's it. I can't remember the title of the series. Perhaps even Song of Ice and Fire, because it's been several years since I've read that as well, by George R.R. Martin. What else? The Axis Trilogy by Sarah Douglas. These are all that are on my radar. I don't know if I will read all of them, probably not, but if I get in the mood for one of these, then I will definitely pick them up and read them. In addition, I have quite a few books unread on my shelves, fantasy books that I had bought and yet I just could not get in the mood for when I got sick of fantasy 10 years ago. I'd like to go through some of those. And they include books by Jennifer Fallon, Fiona McIntosh, Juliet Marilla, and that's just to name a few. There are also some fantasy books where I've read one or I've read part of them and I didn't like them. I'd like to give them another go. I want to see if my tastes have changed. And they include authors like Robin Hobb, Stephen Donaldson, and Tad Williams. As for new fantasy authors that I've never read, I have started the Witcher series. I read The Last Wish, which is actually a prequel and short stories. I want to try at least 1 or 2 books, see if I like them. If I do, then I'll read all of them. And that is going to apply to all new authors. I don't commit to reading an entire series because I may not like it. Other authors include Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series. I really want to read that. As well as the Malazan series by Steve Erikson and Patrick Rothfuss. Though I think I'm going to get really frustrated with him because he hasn't finished the series. Also the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch. And I would like to try John Gwynne and The Poppy War, though I don't remember who the author is. And anything else that strikes my fancy. I think I have at least 1 book from each of these authors, and hopefully I'll like some, and then I'll get the rest of the books and I'll read the entire series. I have already read the first book in the Alex Verus series by Benedict Jacker, and I've now got several more, and I will definitely read those, and if I like them then I'll buy the entire series. I also started the Discworld series this year by Terry Pratchett. I've read only 4 though. I find that with the Discworld books, because they are absurdist and very humorous, I have to be in the mood for humour, and I'm not always in the mood. I thought perhaps I would read the entire series, but I find I can only read a few of those at one time. And then I need a break from the humour and I need to read something else that's a bit more serious. But I am definitely intending to continue reading the Discworld series throughout the year, whenever I get in the mood for something funny, I guess. As for how many books I will get through next year, I have no idea, nor do I really care. I don't like to put a number on it. As far as I'm concerned, it's more important that I enjoy the books I'm reading. I mean, I'll be curious, I won't deny it, but yeah, I'm not going to even try to speculate as to how many I think I'll read. I've only actually ever kept track recently because I wanted to share with you guys what I have read, say, in a particular month. But I'm not setting myself a target. It is whatever I'm in the mood for. Who knows, I may decide I don't want to read anything for several months. I just don't know. So that is a summary of all the books I'm looking to try next year. I make no promises though as to which ones I'll read and which ones I won't, because I have no idea at this point. I'm also looking for recommendations from you guys as to any of the genres that I've spoken about. However, please don't make them young adult fantasy recommendations, because I know I won't read them unless they are really good and they're more geared towards adults than a younger audience. I am not a fan of young adult fiction at all. I never have been. And the few that I have tried this year, I have not liked at all. And that is not judging anyone who does like these books. I personally don't. It is just not to my taste, that's all. But then I've always been somebody who's never liked young adult fiction, even when I was young, so I guess it's not surprising. But any other recommendations other than young adult fantasy, you can put down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram. Well, that is all I have to share with you guys today. I don't know how interesting this video was, but I know that a lot of book YouTubers bring out monthly TBRs, which are useless in my case. I thought, however, you might like to hear what I'm intending to read in the next 12 months. I'd also like to hear what other content you would like to see from me in relation to books, other than reviews, which I will continue to do throughout the year. Well, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me. I really do appreciate it. And if you like this video, you can do the usual. You can like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you all have a safe and wonderful holiday break, and I will see you next year. Bye.